Hello YouTube, Jonathan here, and today I wanted to take a look at some overall Axis power strategies in this Axis and Allies revised board game. Now, when it comes to the Axis powers, a little coordination is important, but they do not need to coordinate as much as perhaps the Allies do. The important thing for the central, or there I go again saying central powers, the Axis powers is they need to know how aggressive and in what direction their allies plan on pushing. If Japan, for example, wants to take on the United States, not something that I would recommend as a strategy, more as a holding action, then Germany knows Japan isn't going to be coming in to try and weaken the Soviet Union. I need to play aggressively, move this way as quickly as possible, and try and knock them out. If Japan, on the other hand, as Japan typically will do, says, I'm going to move into Asia, try and get that production and put pressure on the Soviet Union, Germany, yes, still wants to be aggressive in that direction. Yes, that should still be their predominant strategy, but they can be a little bit more defensive. They don't have to be quite as risky and dump as much offense into trying to take Moscow as quickly as possible. And then should they fail, they are in a world of hurt. They can be a little bit more defensive, especially if the Axis powers suspect that the Allies are all going to go heavily after Germany. It's important that Germany have that defensive infrastructure in place and begins doing so at the start of the first turn. Typically, I'll get a fighter and some infantry and maybe a couple of tanks, a nice little mix. And then as the game progresses, assuming that the Allies do what I expect them to do, which makes it really impossible for Germany to take out Russia on its own, again, assuming that Russia isn't, that Russia is at least somewhat competent, Germany needs to make sure that it can stay alive and keep as much territory as possible, as long as possible, while it waits for Japan to move in. So if it knows it can count on Japan to be doing that, and if it believes the Allies are all going to be focusing here, that's the strategy that Germany will want to pursue. If Japan knows that the US is going to be focusing against it, it might focus more heavily on its navy, which may mean getting more transports, which means it's more likely possibly to swoop down here, get Australia and New Zealand, and have transports to ferry troops over and get production out of Africa and southern Asia, while moving into northern and central Asia at a slower rate than it otherwise would. If they don't believe the US is going to go after them, then they can press forward on all fronts. They might not have as many transports. Their moves down here are probably going to be a little bit slower. But ultimately, Germany is going to be going after the Soviet Union. Germany is not going to be going after England. So the only wild card, aside from what the Allies might do, is Japan. Is Japan going to go after the US? Is it going to go after Asia? And typically I found that going after Asia, whether it's in the entirety, if the US poses no threat really whatsoever, or slowly up this way and more quickly this way as opportunity allows, that either way Japan is still going to be focusing this way. It's just a matter of how many resources can it devote to it. And my belief is that 90% of games, give or take, are settled here. If the Axis powers can take out Moscow before the Allies are in a position to really take one of the Axis capitals, then the game is over. But if they can't put enough pressure on the Soviet Union, take production away, cut off the Soviets' supply of units fast enough, then the Allies are probably going to win that game. So I'd focus everything on taking out Russia as quickly as possible, while of course not leaving myself wide open to any kind of a counterattack. Just holding actions against the US, doing what I can to keep the British Navy at bay, Maybe if the odds are in my favor, make an air raid against it, try and take it out once or twice during the game, just resupplying my air force as much as possible. Usually I get about one fighter a turn, so that even a few rounds in, if I make an attack and lose a number of fighters, I still have some in reserve. So that is what I would keep in mind when playing the Axis powers in Axis and Allies Revised. It is kind of similar to some of the other games. It's the same countries, similar geographic positions. Sometimes the territories change up a little bit, and the units change up a little bit too. But the general idea is still the same as 1942 second edition. So if you play the Axis in that game, you probably could get acclimated to strategies with this game fairly quickly. So that is what I think about the Axis powers in Axis and Allies Revised. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know with a thumbs up or a comment in the comment section. If there's anything more you'd like to see, anything that I overlooked, or any other things, Axis and Allies strategies you'd like to see or get commentary on, please let me know in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video.